Today is the second day of this January 1983 7-day retreat. If other topics don't take up too much time, we will later get to a koan. If not, we will work on that tomorrow. The 3 or 4 topics that I want to talk with you about this morning are tiredness, pain, and helping others. All of these things have been brought up repeatedly by people in this retreat, so we're on very common ground. Just briefly, some words about sleepiness. We talked about it in the opening talk, but let's go over some of the things again. One may be sleepy. It's the first day or second day of sesshin. These are new quarters, there are many people. An unusual bed, well, maybe sleeping upstairs on top of someone else. There are certain noises, one doesn't sleep very much during the night, and then one gets sleepy during the sitting. Some people say, it's strange, at home I can sit with much more energy, and I come here to sesshin, there seems to be less. This may be for these reasons that have just been mentioned. Maybe one has ideas the first night one ought to stay up because some other people are sitting in the sitting area, and one does this even though one is tired. But the idea is there, I ought to be doing that because I don't want to waste my time. I set this time aside. There's a lot of work getting here, so I want to take full advantage. But one is tired. And one is more tired maybe the next morning because one sat up in order to accomplish something. So to be sensitive to the needs of the body, even though one may question them. Always free to question everything, meaning sitting right into it. With the awareness, the breathing, the koan. As several people mentioned on their own, it wasn't my interpretation, maybe the sleepiness is also some kind of a cop-out. I don't know whether this word in itself carries judgment. If so, don't use it. Always, if one has to describe something to oneself, to use neutral words, because we react to our own language that we use on ourselves. We can use a word on ourselves and immediately feel guilty because we've called ourselves a cop-out or some term. Be aware of that. That the language you use has power over you, affects you, causes physical and emotional reactions. So, can you be very clear in describing adequately to yourself, if you need to do that, what is happening? It's a very common occurrence. It is common. Not very common, but common. It holds for everyone that if some things get difficult, uncomfortable, threatening, that sleep seems to be a good way out. The bed is warm, comfortable, one can pull the blanket over the face and have stepped out of the whole thing, so one thinks, for a while. But dreams and sometimes nightmares or waking up with a thick head or a depressed feeling is the indication that one has not stepped out of anything. The mind that works in certain ways during the daytime continues working at night, maybe a little bit roaming around more freely because the rigid censorship is asleep. So there come crazy dreams, threatening dreams, or very happy dreams, or else one wakes up just as though one had been through the ringer. To see that, to observe it for oneself, and question whether sleeping is really a solution, or the hours of sleeping. Not immediately doing something about it. We always start by looking at our problems and becoming intimate and familiar with them, knowing them thoroughly from experience, and yet not immediately storing up that experience. This now will hold for every day from now on. It may not. It held for this time. This is how it is. This is how it was. But whether it will be so tonight or tomorrow, I don't know. So you see, you look, and you eliminate again. This is how our physical body works. Take food, digest it, and we eliminate it. It is altogether possible to sit during a round or block of rounds with a drowsy, heavy, tired head and body. What is it? If I don't name it, don't judge it, don't try with all might to break through this tiredness, that it itself saps energies, this idea I must break through it. It may open up all on its own without you having done anything. It's because one doesn't do what is there, watching, attending, questioning, that this opening occurs on its own. Yet when break time comes, to examine very closely why one continues sitting. Is there an idea I gotta do like the others do? What I've read, heard, want to emulate? Was it clear that there's some work going on in sitting that doesn't take place any other place? Or is that so? Certainly easiest to question, to dive and dig intensely while one is sitting. But it may happen in a different fashion while one is walking, or while one is completely at rest, with no guilt feelings, no feelings of shame, no comparison to others who are not in their bed. Nothing. Just the body resting. Maybe 1 or 2 hours of deep, dreamless sleep. There's a real resurgence of vitality and energy. Yet, remember I used to sit up late a lot. Even though one was tired in the morning, there was something to the state of the mind. Particularly after one had taken a nap and gotten the tiredness had been slept away. There was a certain sharpness to the mind. which when it slept from the beginning to end of the evening was not there. I found it for myself at certain times. May not be true for you. Find out. Test it. This is what you're here for. To test, to examine, to explore for yourself, independent from what others are doing, even though it is a feelable, noticeable help to sit with other people, for most people. Yet there are some who need to sit by themselves, so they do. The next topic, which to dwell on for a while, is pain. Starting out with physical pain, which is, so we think, caused by long hours of sitting in an unaccustomed posture. Maybe one doesn't do much sitting in between retreats. There's not much flexibility in the joints, in the tendons, whatever you call all of those things. One may not start out with a good posture, or one may have injury. And there's pain, excruciating pain in the knees, on the hips, on the ankles which rest there, on the foot, on the leg. There may be pain in all parts of the back, in certain parts all over, radiating through the front, pain in the stomach. Can be pain in the shoulder blades or in the neck, right in the neck and shoulders. Hardly anyone who doesn't have feelings of pain and tension and tightness there. There can be pain in the head, in the heart, in the eyes, tension, burning in the eyes. How does one work with this pain? Or sometimes it's put, how do I deal with it? Usually people find this themselves out of sheer self-preservation. I remember the first sesshin I went to, getting excruciating pain in the back. And having had a long history of a bad back, I was very quickly totally occupied with my memories about my back. What would eventually happen, and great fear whether this was good for the back. I knew how it was going to proceed, how it was going to get worse and worse because it couldn't possibly get better. And, well, I don't have to describe back pain to you. You all know it. Or knee pain. Oh, there are few people who don't have pain of this sort. They have other pain. So, sitting with this pain and unable to do anything about it, and yet wanting to do something about it, wanting to be rid of it, because it was seemed to be such an obstacle, such a hindrance. I couldn't concentrate on anything. It just busied the mind. It was heavy in every respect. All of a sudden, it occurred to me that in truth, I did not know what this was. Sure, I had memories of my back, and yet what this was right now, I didn't know. I couldn't possibly know. I could only know what had happened before. And that was so convincing, so clear, that all memories and ideas of what to do about it, or ideas what may happen or come from it, just dropped away because they were useless, because I didn't know what this was. And not knowing what it was, I had to attend to it completely. Even waiting for the bell to sound was too much. That had happened before, and I realized all of a sudden that maybe this was the separation I had heard so much about, waiting for that bell to ring. What a pain. So there was nothing left except that, and I didn't know what that was. And it changed. I don't know to what, but all I can say is it ceased to be a problem. It was possible to work again on whatever I was working on with a renewed energy. Actually, the energy had not been absent in the pain, it was just tied up in worry. Theoretical worry, giving place to an open not knowing, and a freedom to be all that there is at this instant. No matter where it takes you. You don't know. In addition to physical pain, which may be the result of long hours of sitting and what we've just all described, there's the pain of mental anguish, the pain of grief, sadness, fear and anxiety, pain of loss, and as most people reported, it sits right here in the middle of the chest, manifesting itself as tightness, chokiness, heaviness, and a painful burning knot right there in the middle of the chest. Comes to all of us at times, many times over. And every time it comes, we seem to be staggered by it, or in a mild or heavy state of shock over it. Or elsewhere, it's chronological and we sort of are accustomed to it, but not quite. There's always this frustration with it. This frustrated feeling, when will it come to an end? I want to shake it, shed it, be done with it, rid of it, once and for all. It's killing me. Oh, is it going to get worse? Will I have to live like this all my life? Either we don't know the origin of this pain, we seem to have had it all our life, or else there has been a sudden loss of someone who is very, very dear to one, who made one feel glad, happy, wanted, loved, of worth. for whom one could provide care or physical affection. And there was mutuality in that. And now suddenly this person has left, or one has left this person for some reason or other. Maybe a child, or maybe an animal one was so close to. All one's affections right there with this being who seemed so innocent, so free. All the characteristics that oneself feels so much wanting. And now it's gone. The man, the woman, the child, the animal is gone. First reaction usually is one of a mild shock. When the organism somehow or other has devices to protect itself from too much pain. And then one comes out of it. And then there is that pain. Like something is torn out of one physically, a gashing wound. Just a constant spring of sorrow. And there seems to be no end to the pouring of that. And then what? What do you do at a time like that? Maybe one of the first responses is to want comfort from someone or coming from somewhere. One examines very closely, in this pain, embedded in it is also the pain of self-pity. Feeling very sorry for oneself, feeling victimized, there may be anger mixed in, having been wronged, unfairly treated. And the pain of this thought, is this going to happen over and over and over again? Because it has happened over and over again already. How many more times? The thought may come up, I've got to do something about this. This will not happen to me again. And devices, building walls around oneself or practicing detachment, refusing to enter into any kind of relationship for fear of being hurt again. But the pain itself and the root of it has not been faced, and it's simmering there. It's festering on. Or another response may be to try to find a new relationship, to replace the old one. Or something new to join. A new religion, a comforting Savior. Becoming a firm believer in the afterlife, so one doesn't have to deal with this life. going back to this pain, what is one going to do with it? It is there, and the feeling is very real. It may kill me. It saps me completely. I've got no energy. I can't even see it. Why can't you see it? Is it that there's already the idea, if I see it, it ought to go away, and it's not going away, therefore I'm probably not seeing it? Or not wanting to see, being afraid to see, being afraid to look, without any escape route, no loopholes, no little place to hover. Just there being that, and not knowing what it is, not manipulating it, nothing. Is that possible? If you say there's no energy to see, do you say that to yourself and therefore you don't try? Actually, seeing is not a matter of trying, and does it need energy? It is energy. But it's not yours that you have to muster. It is the freedom, the openness, to allow something to be, with no one there to control it, to be its victim. Absolutely no conditions. No conditions. Just this being there unconditionally. What is it? No one observing. Because that's another loophole. The observer already wants or doesn't want. Just this thing, which you don't know what it is, you don't label it, you don't name it. What is it? One person brought up during the meeting something which I do not remember literally. So I will put it into my own words, make it very general. There's a real feeling of guilt in me about not helping a member of my family who is very sick emotionally. As a matter of fact, so sick he hardly gets out of bed anymore. And it's a great strain on my parents with whom he lives. And here I am, away from them for the time being, and I'm not helping them. And I don't even know how to help. I feel very bad about this. It weighs on me. What can I do to help this person. After all, he's my brother. In one form or other, probably has come up or is coming up for every one of us. This idea of helping others. That we ought to be doing that, and if we're not doing it, a real strong, nagging feeling of guilt that we're not doing what we should be doing. And what we think other people are doing, we're falling short of that. Again, as with anything in this kind of work, can one put aside ideals and ideas and look directly, try to think out directly what this whole thing of helping others is. Isn't it, at first glance, doesn't it spring into your face that it itself is an idea? I must help someone. I must help particularly a member of my family, because we're a family, and the very strong idea is that my family comes first. Of course, if one lives in a family, of course one takes care of each other, or does one? Does one do this because it's an idea, because it's a vow one has once given, or because one lives together and takes care of each other? Here, this particular person doesn't live at home, and yet this nagging feeling, I ought to help, the nagging idea. Closely linked with the idea I ought to help. Look at it for yourself. Isn't there linked with this a feeling of the meaninglessness of one's life unless one helps someone? My life is really very superficially lived, very selfish, very shallow, actually quite empty if I look at all the activities that fill it day in and day out. But if I helped someone, maybe this would infuse my life with meaning, and it would feel good. This would relieve me of this feeling of guilt. It would be a feeling of fulfillment then, if I helped one or two or several people. Then if somebody asked me, what do you do? I could mention something that is meaningful to others, it's worthwhile, it has a good standing in the community. To be a helper of some sort. Please don't interpret what is being said as talking against becoming a nurse or a social worker or a psychologist or a doctor. You need to find a job to do. You find what you need to do and what you really like to do, what you love to do. I'm not speaking against this. And yet you can look, what all goes into my wanting to be this social worker? And be honest with yourself and observe freely and openly where there isn't this gaping emptiness inside, a nagging guilt of not doing enough for others, and this will do it. So your work or your help is linked up with your own satisfaction. Do you see that? Or maybe, it may not be, but then you're not concerned, and then helping is no problem for you. If it is a problem, there's a link with trying to feel better yourself about yourself. So one may try to help someone, go out to help this person, in order to feel better oneself. Feeling that one is finally doing something worthwhile, in addition to the other things that one really likes to do, but that don't stand quite up in the social values. Now, look, or let's see what happens if one is invested in this help that one is giving, that one's own satisfaction is invested in that. Doesn't this mean that you also want results when you give help? Imagine yourself taking care of someone day in and day out, year in, year out, and the person doesn't get better at all. As a matter of fact, he or she gets worse. Then where are you? Aren't you beginning to doubt your value again? Or supposing this person shows no gratitude, it doesn't even realize what you're putting in. No appreciation. If anything, blame. Criticism of you for doing it this way rather than that way. Does something then begin to shake? Is there anger coming up, frustration, and doubting this whole thing of helping this person or people? So one must always be very open and clear what is all tied up with this idea of helping. Help, really helping, in that there is no expectation of results. They may come or they may not come, but one is not invested in the results. One is not invested in the work. One doesn't do it so one can feel fulfillment, because otherwise one feels guilty of not leading a worthwhile life. Is this all clear? Is one clear as one goes out to help? Or is at least an urgency to clarify this whole matter as one is helping, in quotation marks, doing this work of helping? One can even drop the word helping. It has so many connotations to it. Is one willing to examine all that comes up in the process? Take nothing for granted. Reactions of misgivings at the lack of gratitude, defensiveness as one is criticized, all of this coming under the laser beam of attention. Beam is not a good word, it's so local. Attention is localized as well as all-encompassing, the whole field. One must even examine one's idea of what help is. People are in misery. They are in pain. They're in agony, anxious and afraid. And they want help. What is help? Do we know? Conventionally, the idea is to comfort someone, to talk to him or her of a better future. Things will pass. Sort of providing a broad chest for someone to cry on. I'm not saying this sarcastically. There may be a feeling of relief, particularly if there's real love and affection in an embrace. But how deep does it go? Does it bring understanding, thorough understanding, of the root of all grief, of all sorrow and fear and pain? Do we understand that ourselves? Are we looking into that ourselves as we are helping others? Not, I've done it once and that should do for the rest of my life, but doing it as you move along, as you move with others, as you come in touch with human grief, human sorrow and pain. Is there always this diving deeply all the way to the bottom of it? Or does one get stuck someplace in the middle, slightly under the surface, or in the surface itself? Many people may not want that kind of help. If you move right in as if with a bulldozer, the person will run away. So how do you work with people? How do you help people? How do you help your brother? How do you help yourself? Because your brother and you are not different. Work that happens here in all openness and frankness and freedom that may or may not affect someone who's right there with you. You don't know. If you expect it, you're going to be disappointed. If it doesn't happen, you're going to feel very gratified and fulfilled if it happens, which is another mark chalked up in the brain. Can the brain be left unmarked by success and failure? Unmarked by success and failure. So that it's free to look and see and speak or not speak. So that we can communicate with each other. When there's already this whole superstructure, this oppressive superstructure of success and failure, how can you communicate? You're already tied and weighted. So can you toss it out this moment? The idea of helping and being helped. Toss it out. And be free to really work where you need to work. And leave the effects to themselves. Came up with several people during the last meetings that we've had. This question of what is love? I really love this person. We really do love each other, but then at times there's this sheet of ice between us. Or this painful description. I feel so completely unloved, so easily rejected. This yearning to be loved, What is it really? Look at it. What are you yearning for when you yearn to be loved? Be sober about it, not romantic. You yearn to be taken in the arms by someone who's strong. Things being done for you. Physical pleasure. Physical closeness. And yet there's always the fear that this may come to an end, which it does. We all know that. And then there's this pain again in the chest, in the heart. Because it has never been resolved before that. This yearning to be loved. Yearning for mutual love without rejection. Does one know love? Does one know what love is? Making any kind of conditions. I do this for you, but then you better do that for me. I expect this to be done to me. Why call that love? And if you don't do it, I'm going to be very hurt or jealous. Is that love? Possessing each other cannot possibly be love. Even this idea of I want to get love, I want to be loved. Can you get love? We're coming back to where we started. What is it that you want to get? Well, you can describe it to yourself very thoroughly, but that's not love. You just call that love. Love is nothing to be gotten, because there's no receiver. The receiver is the fear of being unworthy, unwanted, and rejected. Can one see that receiver so clearly? Who is it? You may find it in one glimpse, in which there's no receiver, no wanter, no yearner, no expector, and no doer. Nothing, no one. No giving and no receiving. Maybe at that moment there is this thing which is called love. And it knows absolutely no division. No separation. And doesn't want anything back. So do we see the urgency of looking at wanting, making conditions? The fear of rejections. As this comes up, see it, be with it. In the way we talked about the fear, the pain, just allowing that to be there. Don't condemn it, don't wish it away. What is it? Whatever comes up, everything that comes up, at any one time, you're free to let that be. Do you establish yourself a little island there someplace? Do you see that? That's the seed of sorrow and separation and pain. and the absence of love.